You know, New York can be a very strange and sometimes scary place. I remember I was walking down next to this cafe and there was this man with a gun in his mouth. And I just run up to him and I said, "Oh my lord, are you okay? Do you need help?" And he just goes, he can't talk because he's got a gun in his mouth. And he just kind of waves me on and goes back to writing his screenplay, and then he just goes back to chewing on his gun. It's weird.
You know, I think I've stumbled on a weird piece of behavior that I think only Americans do. I noticed that whenever we hate something, we tend to put the word big in front of it, like it gives it a bad connotation, like big oil, big pharma, big tech, big women.
I really don't get salesmen, especially the ones who are going, "We must be crazy! We must be out of our minds to be doing this sale!" I mean, what am I supposed to take from that? Am I going to go shopping and look at some high-priced goods and say, gee, I don't know, honey, these prices are pretty high. I think I'll come back whenever the salesman is a bit more retarded. That way, the prices will be a bit lower, I think. I'm starting to think now I might be an environmentalist. Because think about it, how many more people have to die in forest fires before we realize that all these trees are just stupid?
There are times where football can be kind of scary, but what's even scarier are some of the stories that people tell other people to keep them from trying out for the football team. Everybody knows that one guy, that one sweet little granny who was like, "Oh, well, you're trying out for the football team? Oh, I don't know, that can be dangerous. Last week, my nephew Davey ran for the team, and he made it to the 30-yard line until some lonely drifter came out and shot him in the crotch with a 10 gauge. It was sad, but we made it to state, though, so that was good."
Well, we got some real problems with drugs in the U.S., and not to downplay it, I myself have been touched by the sting of drug use in the past in college. It wasn't cocaine or anything that crazy. No, as for me, I was a Novocaine addict. Yeah, just wanted to feel completely numb, like my brain after watching all them Transformers movies. Still, though, I had to be careful whenever I was going to college because the signs of usage were pretty hard to hide. Hey guys, you ready for clap? After watching all these nature documentaries with all these fish getting caught into garbage, I'm starting to think that all sea life is just retarded. Well, as you all have probably seen, I've recently made a foray into comedy, and that really wasn't always the case. Some of you longtime listeners probably know that I am a writer, still am, and I also did some very rewarding work over at the cockfighting circuit. Yeah, the thing is about those cockfights, I always got caught up in cut and bruises with feathers all over the place, but the good news is I'm still undefeated, so that's the one silver lining in this cloud.
I like to think I know a little bit about sports. Like, for instance, I use this one trick over at sports arenas to make a lot of money. And that trick is, if you're going to scalp tickets, make sure you do it outside of the stadium. Do not try to scalp tickets from the bleachers. For some damn reason, it doesn't work.
A new season of The Kardashians is now streaming on Hulu, and if you want to watch my full review of the series, then you can catch all of that in my suicide note.
Well, I hope you guys are all having a really fine day today, because as for me, it's not so fine. I did a pretty boneheaded thing the other day. I got a tub of ice cream pregnant. It was my own fault. I kept trying to lick the bottom, and one thing led to another.
It's hard to get dates sometimes when you're a guy who looks like me. I remember this one time I was actually hit on by a woman who claimed to have 2 vaginas. I had to turn her down because I'm bad at math. Well, it can be hard living out in the country sometimes. I remember I once saw this deer running across the street, and then this guy just comes from the other side and wham! That deer goes flying for about 4 or 5 yards, and the other guy wasn't even fazed. He just kept jogging. I know I've made fun of the Kardashians in the past, but really, I really harbor no ill will towards the Kardashian family. In fact, there are some times where I've actually had dreams, if you can believe it, about the Kardashians, where it's just out in the middle of the woods, in front of a roaring fire, and sitting next to me on the log is Kim Kardashian. And I'm looking over and I'm starting to get all excited because you know, a woman with an ass that big is going to feed the fire for another good 2 hours.
I've been having some trouble going to the gym because I'm not really a macho man, you know. I remember I was going to the gym and the guy next to me says, well, what are you lifting? And I'm like, well, I got some 20-pound barbells. And he's like, oh, look out for Mr. Universe over here. I'm not sure I'm so comfortable hanging out with somebody who's so much more manly than I am. And I'm like, oh, you kidder. I've seen your wife.
One of the most embarrassing facts about me is that I actually used to be a peeping Tom, you know. I was a bit of a wild kid, and I was also very impatient and had very high ADD. So there would be times wherever I'd be sitting up on my tree branch looking in through the window, and then there would be times that I would just sit there and shout, boo! And then I'd get out my popcorn. Your husband sucks! Bring back the Amazon driver! Well, I hope you guys are having a good day out today. As for me, I'm having kind of a crappy day. I had a friend of mine who just died recently. It was his own fault. He was out on the marina drinking, and he accidentally stumbled, and then his head kind of fell in between these two planks, and then he got his head crushed. And I think it was on that day I realized the true dangers of peer pressure.